You will now be entering Module 1, Chapter 6, Understanding People Management Concepts. Please review this section and complete the assignment with a minimum score of 80%.
The objectives for this chapter will discuss the principles of supervision and basic human resources management, explain the history and principles of scientific management, and explain the history and principles of humanistic management. Discuss the function of human resources management, coordinate the completion of assigned tasks and projects. Let's begin by defining what management science is. Management science is systemic pursuit of practical results using available resources. An EMS officer is a manager who has been given the responsibility of directing and supervising a group of EMS providers, as well as apparatus, equipment, facilities, and other resources to achieve certain outcomes. In the EMS service, the desirable outcomes begin with protecting people and property from a variety of hazardous situations. Additional desirable outcomes include ensuring that the work is performed safely, efficiently, and promptly, and in accordance with a long list of rules, regulations, procedures, protocols, and additional concerns. Most EMS officers will find that managing people is their greatest challenge. There are two things to remember. Workers get the job done while managers direct and coordinate workers' efforts. To be effective as a manager, an EMS officer must develop skills that are directly related to managing human resources. Human resources management is built from two schools of thought: scientific management, which is breaking down the work tasks as well as the standardization of work tasks, and humanistic management, which focuses more on the workers and the worker conditions. Each school developed a set of theories on how supervisors can manage people to accomplish tasks in the work environment. Scientific management. In the 19th century, Frederick Winslow Taylor developed and put into place the basic elements of what later came to be known as scientific management. Scientific management was learned on the shop floor and is based on breaking down work tasks, timing each element, fixing compensation based on timing, standardizing work tasks, consolidating a planning department. In 1911, Taylor published The Principles of Scientific Management, describing how the application of the scientific method to the management of workers could greatly improve productivity. Humanistic management. One problem with the scientific management method was that people were treated like animals in a scientific management production line. Taylor considered workers as cheap, stupid, and interchangeable. Each worker was trained to perform just one task and to repeat that task at a mind-numbing rate. The Humanistic Management School shifted the focus to pay more attention to the workers and to the working conditions that would make those workers more productive. From 1924 until 1933, Western Electric's Hawthorne Works plant was the site of a series of experiments in which changes in the working conditions were evaluated against productivity in an electronic relay assembly line. These experiments yielded the term Hawthorne effect, a phenomenon in which people improve their performance or behavior not because of any specific condition being tested, but simply because of the extra attention they receive as part of the study. Humanistic management research continued through the work of Douglas McGregor and Abraham H. Maslow. Douglas McGregor, a social psychologist and professor of management at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, studied the work environment from the mid-1930s through the mid-1950s. McGregor's 1960 publication, The Human Side of Enterprise, summarized the results of his research and added the Theory X and Theory Y concepts to the manager's motivational toolbox. Abraham H. Maslow was a psychologist who researched mental health and human potential. McGregor developed the Theory X and Theory Y concepts to define this problem in terms of the manager's or the organization's view of the workers. A Theory X manager believes that people do not like to work, so subsequently they need to be closely watched and controlled. A Theory Y manager believes that people do like to work and that they need to be encouraged rather than controlled. Theory X versus Theory Y for the EMS officer has individuals seeking to become EMS providers because they are attracted to the work. The EMS officer is supervising a workforce whose members are dedicated and enthusiastic about their responsibilities as EMS providers. The officer's challenge is often to steer these members' efforts in the right direction and to create an effective team. Theory Y doesn't work for every situation. Generally, there are 3 situations in which the EMS officer must temporarily behave as a Theory X manager. Number 1, when operating in a dangerous EMS incident or other high-risk activity, the EMS officer must provide close and autocratic supervision. 2, workplace conflict and issue specific directions to diffuse the situation. And 3, when an EMS officer is near the end of a series of negative disciplinary measures. Abraham Maslow is most often associated with the concepts of a hierarchy of needs, self-actualization, and peak experiences. Maslow's concept has depicted human needs as being arranged like a ladder or a pyramid, with the most basic at the bottom of the ladder. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Level 1, physiological needs. The most basic human needs at the bottom of the ladder are physical: air, water, food, and shelter. It's difficult to be creative or productive when you are exhausted and hungry. For the EMS officer, this point emphasizes the importance of staying alert for conditions where the EMS providers are hungry, exhausted, dehydrated, too hot, or too cold. Level 2, safety, security, and order. Safety and security and order needs are next in Maslow's hierarchy. Safety is obviously a primary concern in EMS, although an EMS provider's perceptions of safety are probably quite different from those of a typical office or factory worker. Consider the EMS team who feels that their EMS officer is leading them in a direction of unsafe or necessary danger, or perhaps their EMS officer has chosen not to promptly repair or replace equipment that has broken and may result in unsafe workplaces. How is this going to affect the team and the EMS officer relationship? Security is more closely associated with maintaining status within the organization. It could take form as subtle as fear that a personality clash with a particular company officer will destroy or impede an EMS provider's career. An individual who feels threatened may do what is necessary to survive, but will not feel highly motivated to advance the EMS officer or EMS agency objectives. The need for security and order could be a factor when an EMS agency is undergoing a significant reorganization, such as the appointment of a new chief or the combination of departments into a regional authority. Any change in the established order is likely to arouse insecurities. At the third level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs are psychological or social needs related to belonging to a group and feeling acceptance by that group. Group acceptance and belonging are particularly strong forces within the EMS service. How many of our EMS personnel have some type of identifying marking on their vehicle, or proudly wear agency attire or patches in public when they're off duty? At the fourth level, in the early 1960s, the Exxon Corporation hired behavioral scientists Robert Blake and Jane Mouton to perform a series of experiments designed to increase leadership effectiveness. Their system became known as the Gride theory. The Gride theory is broken down into 5 managerial styles. The indifferent style represents the lowest level of concern for both results and people. A controlling person demonstrates a high concern for results, but a low concern for others. The accommodating person demonstrates a low concern for results and a high concern for other people. The status quo person believes that there is an inherent contradiction between the concerns for results and for people, but does not value one concern over the other. And the sound person sees no contradiction in demonstrating a high concern for both people and results at the same time. Human Resources Management focuses on the task of managing people using physical, financial, and time assets. Although some human resources functions affect career agencies more than volunteer agencies, all functions are required. Typical human resources management functions include the following. Human resources planning is the process of having the right number of people in the right place at the right time who can accomplish a task efficiently and effectively. Most often, this includes forecasting future staffing needs and determining how those needs can be met. Personnel relations include all activities designed to maintain a rapport with the membership. Most often, these actions are associated with working with labor organizations. EMS officers must know and understand all agreements between labor and the EMS agency. The EMS officer should also be aware of the vast number of laws that regulate the relationship between employees and their employer. Staffing is the process of attracting, selecting, and maintaining an adequate supply of labor. The EMS service traditionally has been fortunate in its ability to attract applicants. However, with the increase in the services provided and the greater educational requirements, recruitment is becoming more difficult. One basic principle is for the EMS officer to know and understand the EMS agency's mission. Frequently, the EMS agency's mission is expressed through a written statement. The mission statement is a formal document that outlines the basic reason for the organization's existence and states how it sees itself. It's designed to guide the actions of all personnel. One of the greatest demands on the EMS officer is to make effective use of time. EMS officers will find that a great number of demands on the team's time are made. These demands include conducting public education and equipment inspections. They also include training and education of the crew members and routine duties such as cleaning the station, doing paperwork, and maintaining the apparatus. Ultimately, all of these duties must be completed while the team's main mission remains as it must, responding to calls. The EMS officer will need to determine which activities need to be completed, when must they be completed, and how long will they take. To assist in making sure that activities are accomplished, it is often beneficial for the EMS officer to properly plan. This can be done through a number of ways, including placing scheduled events on a monthly calendar. This can be done for the officer themselves, the team, or even at an agency level. Create a daily file. Many agencies will keep a daily log or a log book to record the events of the day. A typical day is all call responses and many other duties that are required. They may need to be carried over from one shift to another. This can help keep track of where you left off, as well as pass down to others coming in behind you to complete the tasks. Delegation of duties. As an officer, you cannot complete 100% of the duties alone. Oftentimes, you'll need to delegate duties to others on your team. This may be while you are performing patient care, preparing a budget request. Delegation of duties to your team members can increase your performance and increase the effectiveness of your team. Let's review what we've discussed in this chapter. Management science is a systemic pursuit of practical results using available human and knowledge resources in a concerted and reinforcing way. Scientific management breaks down work tasks into constituent elements. The timing of each element is based on repeated stopwatch studies that look to standardize work tasks into simple, repeatable tasks. Humanistic management shifted the focus to paying more attention to the workers and to the working conditions. These improvements would make workers happier and more productive. A McGregor theory X manager believes that people do not like to work, so they need to be closely watched and controlled, while the theory Y manager believes that people do like to work and that they need to be encouraged, not controlled. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a ladder comprising of 5 need levels. The supervisor's role is to meet the employee's needs so that the employee can proceed to the next level. The grid theory of management assumes that every decision made and every action taken in the workplace is driven by people's values, attitudes, and beliefs. This grid describes 5 behavioral models based on a person's position.
Managing EMS providers requires physical, financial, human, and time resources. Human resources planning involves having the right number of people in the right place at the right time. One of the greatest demands on the EMS officer is ensuring effective use of time. The EMS officer's ability to utilize the human resources that are assigned is essential.